Oh, yes. What's up, bud? Waiting for you, yeah?
Everyone's present, Judge.
All right, this is calling case number 2020 CF 195, State of Wisconsin versus Shawn Ford. Mr. Ford appears in custody with his attorney, Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Kruger appears on behalf of the state. It's scheduled for a motion for bail modification. I'm appearing via Zoom for a couple of different reasons, but one of them is just kind of experimental to see how this works in case I do have to go remote at some point in the future. Mr. Hoffman, it is your motion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Ford's bail at the moment is set at a $500 cash bond with a $2,000 signature bond component. He has been in custody since June 24th. As my motion indicates, I think he was residing in Duluth in the past, but the majority of his life he's resided in Superior. He has relatives who live in this area. At the time he had his initial appearance and when the bail was set, he had a DOC hold, and as my motion indicates, at this point, my understanding is that he has been given a sanction with an out date or an in date of August 17th, 2020. In looking at his past history, my understanding, unless counsel has information to the contrary, he does have a missed court appearance, but it was back in June of 2003. His history since then, I believe, is to appear in court if he's out of custody with some sort of bail. And so our request is to either just remove the cash bond component or to remove it or increase the signature bond required on Mr. Ford. And so that's our request today.
Mr. Kruger.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state would oppose Mr. Hoffman's motion. The state had requested $1,000 cash bail at the initial appearance on the new file here. That was lowered to $500 over the state's objection. The defendant does have a fairly substantial history. While there's not a lot in the way of failures to appear, the defendant was out on probation when the present charges were picked up, both for possession of methamphetamine in the 2019 file, and then was out on bond when he committed the present felony bail jump and the criminal damage to property. So based on that, the state believes that $500 is quite appropriate. An offer has been extended to Mr. Hoffman. He probably hasn't had a chance to see it yet. I only sent it to him in the last about 45 minutes or so. He's been in initial appearances. However, the defendant does have a status conference coming up in, I think, about 10 days. I am hopeful that defense counsel and the state will have an opportunity to resolve this case by then, and Mr. Ford will not need to sit a significant amount of lengthy time that is unnecessary. So given the revoked probation, the new crimes committed while out of custody and on supervision, the state believes that the $500 does continue to be appropriate.
Mr. Hoffman, first of all, does your client have the ability to post any bond?
Not right now. Not in the moment.
Your Honor, not at the moment. He does not have any money.
Okay. It is your motion. You get the last say, Mr. Hoffman.
There's nothing else that I have additional, Judge.
All right. I've reviewed the motion, heard the arguments. Quite frankly, looking at just the charges alone that include felony bail jumping, some amount of cash in my mind, even with only one missed appearance, is necessary to assure the defendant's appearance in court in light, again, of the types of charges. That's what I was interested in about. I think some amount of cash bail would make sense and does make sense. The defendant says they can't post any amount of cash bail, so I don't know that I can modify. Even if I modify it apparently to $100, it doesn't matter whether it's $100 or $500. Some amount of cash bail is necessary based upon the charges. It's interesting. I typically, I hear something about a record, but there's been no allegations of what his prior criminal convictions are. So I certainly can't take into consideration anything like that. But I think just based upon the nature of the charge being bail jumping, there does need to be the cash bail. So not knowing an amount that the defendant could potentially post, I'll order that bond and conditions continue. If for some reason he has the ability to post some cash bail in the future, I would certainly take that into consideration, and we could look to do something else at the next hearing. I think that's it. Was there anything else, Mr. Hoffman?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Kruger?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.